What is going on, everybody? I'm going to wait for you guys to pop on in, and I am going to talk a little bit about what I will be doing on this slate and wait till we get a few people to pop in before I do. Focusing on the Fanduel slate first because we have the extra game there. I do like Pittsburgh a little bit, and I like using some of. We're going to get different tonight, so there's going to be a lot of things I say that are going to turn out terribly, but we have to try to win. So if we're going to try to win, and I don't think it's even that crazy, but we're going to play some Brew Baker. We are going to play some Pittsburgh, specifically Reynolds. Let's see, who do I have on my list of priorities? Reynolds, Vogelbach, Hayes, and then Gamble would be my favorite. Yoshi is okay as well. I don't think they're going to be especially high owned, which anything below 20% on this slate is not especially high owned. And I think that's you're probably talking about a 10 to 15 range. I really like Salvador Perez. This is on FanDuel. Salvador Perez, Bobby Witt, and Whit Merrifield, who's now not going to be any secret. He had a home run yesterday, and now he's batting first again, back up from eighth. I think playing the Rangers, they're projecting to be lower owned on FanDuel than I would have guessed. So I think that they're a very, very, very viable stack. I don't buy it exactly. I think they're going to be a little higher owned than they're being projected, but that's what I've got here. I was a little surprised to see it. But the real teams you're going to get off the board with, in my opinion, are the Yankees, because people are going to pitch C's. And I think you can use one Yankee even in the lineup with C's. And the Dodgers are going to be owned a little bit, but not as much as maybe they could be. And you can include Will Smith, Chris Taylor, and Gavin Lux on FanDuel as ways to get a little bit different. Of course, there could be a different lineup that when we get the lineups out. So that's something to keep in mind. Say what's up to everybody. Nick, what's up, buddy? We're going to get to basketball soon in a little bit. Was happy to get the win of the alley-oop last night. It was really great. It's always great with feeling when you get have one entry on these 2-game slates and you can get there. Oh man, sorry to hear that, Jim. That's always frustrating when that happens. That's rough. I hate that's baseball's a rough run for that kind of stuff. So I'm sorry to hear it. I had an okay morning slate myself, but I probably got a little lucky in the fact that I did have Soto. Thanks a lot, Charlie. Appreciate it, man. Charles. Thanks a lot, Nick. I appreciate it. And we've been on fire with the bets. So I have my bets up there tonight. Again, I always feel like I don't want to jinx it, but please check out the bets on the site, because I mean, it's 86% now for the postseason. I confirmed that today, 78% for the regular season. I've never had, obviously I'm not betting every game, but look, you make 4 or 5 bets a day and you can do that throughout the season. I don't know if it could ever be this good again. So keep going with it. Going to say what's up to Joanne. Welcome. Good evening. Good to see you there. And let's focus on the slate. So as I was saying, my lineups, I'm just going to give away a little bit. I'll tell you right now, I haven't changed my FanDuel lineups from the ones that I entered as my early builds on the site. And I don't care. Like I'm probably going to make a little edit here and there into a couple of them, but they'll definitely end up in some of my tournaments. Doesn't mean I'm not guaranteeing a winner, but it did help last night. People went off of what I posted for on the basketball, and all seemed to profit pretty well. So I do think that there is something to that. And it's one thing we offer that no other site does, that you are seeing my early builds and my early takes on everything. And it is what I'm going to play in some form or another. There might be a 1v1 or a 2v2 swap somewhere, but it's just the way that I'm going to play. And as I mentioned, some favorite bats. I love Bellinger for the Dodgers. I love Betts and Seager. Betts and Turner are my favorite. I like Stanton and Judge as my favorite Yankees. I mentioned that I like Hayes, Reynolds, and Vogelbach on FanDuel as my favorite Pirates, and I do like Gamble a little bit as well. I like the KC thing. I like the Dozier, Perez, Witt combination. I like Gavin Sheets as a one-off. I like the White Sox a little bit, but I mostly am using Sheets as a Sheets, Moncada, a little bit of Abreu, that kind of thing. And I have it a little bit more on DK at the moment, but it's everywhere. And let us know how your golf lineups are doing. I unfortunately don't have as much Munoz as I'd like. I have a little bit. I do have a ton of Mito Pereira, which was a nice one. So he might be my highest owned player, and he's balling out, which is nice. The hoops to play last night, there were some good ones. Kyle Anderson being only 10% owned was a good one. Derek White being, he was 30% owned, and Jaylen Brown, they both, but it made it so you didn't even need Tatum in that specific lineup to get there. It was weird because one of my hot takes, which wasn't in that lineup, in my main lineup, it just wasn't like a little side one that I just threw a couple in the 20. I was very into the Bobby Portis play, which was the nuts, and he was 5% owned and went completely bananas. And that was, and D'Anthony Melton was the other one that was my sneaky play, and they both had great games, but they actually weren't in my main lineup. It was all the 30% guys meshed together in the right way that really benefited me, because it's really hard on these 2-game slates to get the single digit ownership that we like. Yeah, Joanne, to answer that question about the stacks, I don't think that you have to there's good correlation on FanDuel. I would encourage you to try and play more guys from the same team. On DraftKings, I actually think of all the slates we've had so far this season, this is probably the one where you can just take your favorite bats and roll with it, even if it's against your pitcher, because we don't have a ton of pitching options. So that is the way I am treating this slate. And yeah, you want to get a little correlation, maybe a 3-3-2. That makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know. I do have a 4-man stack currently built, but with the Dodgers on DraftKings, and I have other than that, it's threes and favorite one-offs and things like that. And sometimes you end up with like a stack that sort of builds itself out for you. Taking some weird like one-offs like Joey Gallo, even where I'm playing Dylan Cease, because what happens is you might get 2 strikeouts from Gallo and a home run, which doesn't really hurt Cease. That's a net profit of 2.75 fantasy points from one player for Cease, and you get the 14 points from Gallo. Now, obviously, he's probably not going to hit a home run, but that's the kind of way you can approach that. I would try and take one guy against my pitcher in some of these lineups where I want to use Cease, because I still think Cease strikeout upside, even if he gives up some runs, is great. Pop in any other thoughts? I'll jump over to basketball for those of you guys interested in that. And I am, again, it's always a struggle on these 2 gamers to try to get different. I will probably be overweight on the Luka play, playing a little bit more than I did last night in basketball. I will probably be underweight on Embiid. Again, it worries me because I feel like a game could come, but he does not look right. And on top of that, they defend him incredibly well. And to pay $9,700 for a guy who really hasn't even come close to 50, when we've got Jimmy Butler right there, who just is going to project worse, has projected worse every day, who basically gets there every game at lower ownership, I'm probably going to take that route. Jimmy Butler's lowest game in this series, he had the 34 in the first game, which was a lousy game, and they blew him out, so it didn't really matter. But in the games that have been competitive, I mean, even the other night, he played 34 minutes, but again, it was a blowout. If you get a close game, you're getting 40 minutes of Jimmy Butler, and he's been awesome. I really like Tyler Hero if you're not playing Jimmy Butler, and even if you are, I think it's fine to play together. But I want to gamble on Hero, and I want to play some Bam. And I specifically like playing Bam with Ayton, because Ayton is going to get the bulk of the ownership, but I don't think Bam will. And I think Miami is going to go in there and close this thing out tonight. That's my take. Would it surprise me if they don't? No. But if I'm going to play one of the guys from the Sixers, one of the main guys, it's probably going to end up being Harden, to be honest with you. And I like Maxey as a long shot play, tends to play better at home in general. If they run into any trouble, they'll let him sort of take over a little bit. So one of Harden or Maxey will probably be in most of my lineups. Going over to the Phoenix side, Ayton is definitely the one that makes the most sense to me. I have no problem if anybody wants to play Booker or Paul. I personally am siding a little bit with Ayton because of the savings, and I think that's the way you're supposed to beat Dallas is through the inside. Ayton hasn't really done it, but it's consistently been right there in that 5x range, which feels good enough because we need to save a little bit if I'm going to play Luka, right? Mikhail Bridges, I will be below the field, but I will have some exposure there. I will be basically splitting up one of Cam Johnson or Jay Crowder in almost all my lineups. A little bit too low owned for those guys. Both of them can shoot themselves into a game. I don't want to worry about the last game or this guy didn't do this and this guy. It's not the way we do this thing. I really think that if you're split, if you've had to pick one, I think I would take Cam Johnson for the lower ownership. And I think there's a guy who can get hot and really, take over a game at times. But I like Crowder too. So I'm sort of splitting them up myself. But if I had to pick one, I'd go Cam Johnson for the savings. And then the other Dallas guys to play are going to be. It's really hard not to play Brunson for me. I prefer DFS Dorian Finney-Smith over Bullock and Kleber, but I'm better with Kleber than I am with Bullock, and both are sort of speculative to me. It's a very weird speculative play, but I'm going to end up with it, so I'm going to talk about it. But Davis Bertans is going to be in my lineups because even though he's going to have some ownership, I just think no one's playing him at 3,100. He's 3,600 on FanDuel, and literally no one will play him on FanDuel. He can shoot himself into a game, has shown some signs sometimes in this series, minutes trending the right way. And then I think if you want to get into another, off the board, if you don't want to play either Luka or Jalen Brunson, You could take a shot with Dinwiddie. Look, all it takes is a little bit of foul trouble and him to get hot, and all of a sudden those 18 minutes turn into 26 or 28 even. And next thing you're looking at like a 30-plus fantasy point game for a low-owned guy at 4,600. So that's the way I'm approaching this slate in general. I do have some Tobias. I don't love it, to be honest with you. It's a bad matchup. He hasn't been good from a fantasy perspective, but he does fit into some of my builds, and I think he's a strong enough, safe-ish enough play because of the minutes. And you don't want to look at the last game because it was a blowout, but I do think that Tobias Harris is viable. Dinwiddie's been terrible. That's why you got to take shots on these guys. It was my argument for the Bobby Portis night. Everybody thinks they're going to go a certain way. Well, no, teams are going to pivot and make adjustments. And the guy who's playing well and is bringing energy, Portis is the one who helped bring him back with all that. I mean, just by aggressiveness and rebounding, not to mention the final basket. So I'm not recommending that as Dinwiddie. Like, look, if I'm playing 100 lineups, maybe Dinwiddie's in 20 of them. I'm not saying you make him a priority, but you have to take chances. And you cannot say, oh, well, these guys have been bad, and so I want to play the guys who have been good, because that's just what people do. That's not really – you'll never win a tournament doing that. Never. You got to take weird chances. I'd mentioned the Cam Johnson thing. The long shot plays, I went through most of my guys, I'll see if there's anybody else. CP3 game, like that's look, they've done a great job covering him. Everybody thought the last game would have been the game where he would have taken over. He still, it was a blowout, but he played 34 minutes and only put up 25 fantasy points. He's had one game in this series, and he shot lights out in that game. It feels like you're asking for trouble, but again, if Chris Paul was going to be low owned, I would be talking up, we have to play Chris Paul. I don't think he's going to be low owned. I think he's going to be owned the same as he would have been if he was averaging like 50 a game in this series. I really don't think it's any different. So I don't think we're getting any ownership discount, and that's what I'm looking for. So for the ownership, the weird ownership guys, the one you can take a weird shot with is Bismack Biyombo. Don't trust that there'll be any minutes. There's a very good DNP CD possibility, but that's a really get weird 150 type of play. So is Landry Shamet. Those are these are big field, small buy-in type of plays. But one that I might include, I like the Maxey idea to take a shot on him. He's going to play 1 million minutes and can always get hot. And I think he's going to be lower owned than he should be. So I like that. Other guys, I like PJ Tucker again. He was very good to me a couple nights ago. And I feel they're going to try and close this one out. And I think he's going to be out on the court quite a bit. So we know that he's not fun. Don't be surprised. Nobody gets to complain if he scores 9 fantasy points. But if he has a game like he did in the last one where he gets you 30, boy, that feels good. He had 7 assists in that game. The rebounding numbers aren't what we are used to seeing from PJ, but I think he's a very, very solid play. And I like Max Struss also. Maybe it's because if I would have played him over Kleber the other night with my one entry, I would have gone back to back with the alley-oops tying for first, but I didn't quite get there. An interesting one is Dwayne Dedman. I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest with you. I'm a little bothered by the projections every time they've been in this situation. Basically, his minutes have been projected far higher than he's played in any game. I have him down to 12 minutes now, so I made that in. It looks like they're adjusting now. He and Paul Reed. Paul Reed had a big game because they got blown out, and then before that, he was playing for Embiid. So I wouldn't trust those any minutes there. I think Shake Milton would be the guy I would side with of the cheaper ones. I also like Oladipo as another get off the board play, and I'm going to take some shots with Niang. They will play Niang minutes, and they played him in close games in minutes, so that's enough of a reason for me to take a shot there. Max Struss on FanDuel. Well, let me double check his price over there, and we will get it in 1 second. Yeah, absolutely. Max Struss on FanDuel. Again, high range of outcomes with these guys, but I absolutely like that. I can get behind that. Paul Reed is you're trapping yourself. There's a very real non-zero chance that Paul Reed doesn't play 1 minute tonight. If I was going to play Paul Reed, I'd probably rather play Bismack Biyombo. I don't see them giving Embiid the breaks. I mean, look, it's fine. They're either one of those guys, but I would rather err on the side with the team that's up 3-2 than the team that's down 3-2. Because if it's an elimination game, you're going to get everything you got from all your guys. So I don't know where Paul Reed's minutes are going to come from. That's where I'm at. Closeout game, CP3. The Dallas fans pissed. You know what? Maybe he does. I think that CP3 is a completely legitimate play, but you're not. Again, we're not talking about a low-owned play. You know what I mean? you're playing CP3 at high ownership with almost no game that you would take as productive from him so far. Does the fact that it's a closeout game matter? The guy has been pretty awful in closeout games in his past. He's one of the worst playoff performers for Stars, historically until last season. So I don't know about how much I'm going to weigh that in, although I do think Phoenix is going to bring it tonight. I have a feeling both these series end tonight. I kind of hope they don't, but that's my feeling. Luka Embiid stacks, found yourself with some Dedmon too, and I don't hate it. There's ways for him to get there. Again, Dedmon, because he's on, what I like about the Dedmon side is, one, they're familiar with him. They do tend to give him minutes. And two, if the team that's up in the series is always going to have a chance to play the other guy's minutes. Now, would it surprise me if Dedmon doesn't play any minutes? No, I wouldn't be surprised if Dedmon doesn't play one single minute tonight. And I wouldn't be surprised if he plays 10 or 12. And he's going to be owned for what it's worth. It's not like you're getting a guy at no ownership here. So I just want to throw that out there. I prefer Bertans over Dedmon because I at least know Bertans will play. Bridges is, I'm going to be below the field on Bridges, but I will have some exposure. There's never really a Bridges game, right? Like maybe if when they're playing New Orleans or something like that, because the pace and he can get steals and blocks and stuff. But there's never, like, he doesn't do, when Chris Paul and Devin Booker are healthy, even when they're not, it's not like he's a guy who's going to go out there and try and take over games. You're just asking for a lot from him. So it's similar play to Durant Finney-Smith. I would give him a little bit of the hedge over Finney-Smith as a play, but I think it's pretty close between those two. All right. So what's the little narrative you like, Nick Nelson? Did I miss it? I haven't seen the narrative, and maybe I mentioned it. I didn't really see. Oh, you're talking about the Chris Paul thing. Yeah, I don't really know that the closeout games are. I mean, to be honest, that might be a better narrative for Devin Booker than it would be for Chris Paul, in my opinion. But look, it's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with playing Chris Paul. I didn't find him in as many of my builds as you might think, but not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing today. Some things I'm doing to get different, are just trying to change some builds, leave some money on the table, and like not too much, but a little bit on the table in certain spots. Trying to play, certain guys where they're going to be lower owned rather than the other side. I do have a good amount of PJ Tucker tonight. Along with Kleber, because most people will pick Kleber over Tucker. So that combination already differentiates you just a little bit. I like Oladipo a lot, and I think people will play him more on Fanduel, less on DraftKings. I'm very happy with him on either site. I do have some Harden and Harris combinations, and I really like Tyler Hero or Jimmy Butler in basically all your lineups. But, well, let's put it this way. Jimmy Butler, Bam, Hero, or Oladipo is a must in all your lineups, in my opinion, one of those guys. But picking them are tough. And I think Butler is obviously the best for raw points, but I think Hero could have a game here. And it's the kind of game where I could see maybe he shoots them their way in there, because I just feel it. I just have a weird feeling about Hero. He's actually in both my big buy-ins on DraftKings right now and not in my main Fanduel one at the moment, to be honest. Hey, thanks a lot, buddy. Nick, always appreciate the kind words from you, man. Guys, let me know if there's anything else. Otherwise, I'm going to finish my baseball builds and make sure that everybody's playing, because it looks like we have lineups out now, and it looks like everybody I want to play is playing. So without giving too much away, my lineup builds are basically what you guys saw exactly on the site earlier today. So at least look, you could say a lot of things about me. I will tell you what I'm doing, and I am not going to lie about it. I have no interest in whatever. I believe in the long term in this game, and I believe in doing the right thing. And that's what I'm going to do. So that's where I'm at. That's pretty much it, I guess. If there's any more questions, feel free to tell me. I'm just editing a couple things, getting a couple different pivots set up on FanDuel. In case I didn't mention, my core plays also haven't really changed. I love Corey Seager, but he's going to be popular. And I really like getting to Pittsburgh on FanDuel. I really think it's a smart way to go on this particular slate. So just want to keep reiterating that. I think Adolis Garcia ends up low owned on FanDuel and probably on DK a little bit. So I like that. I think I'm giving away pretty much everything I'm doing. I don't know what's happening with this Wheeler thing. Like, let's just see real quick. Do we have an update on the news? Wheeler is scheduled to join the Phillies in Los Angeles to return to COVID. That's from yesterday. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this one. Feels very strange to have this, but that's what I'm gonna do. guess it is what it is at some point. All right, let's see if there's anything else that anybody fired off in there. 4-man Miami stack, Struss, Butler, Tucker, Bam on FanDuel. It's a little more than I would want. I think it's fine. It's not what I would try to get a little bit less exposure, but it's kind of okay because they don't exactly all eat into each other's strengths. I definitely would be running it back with Harden or Embiid if you're doing that. Yeah, that's where I'm at. All right. Anybody got any golf sweats going on? Anything good happening in the golf world? I've got some nice lineups that I'm just going to need a few guys to pick it up and to make the cut for me, because that's really my only concern. I've got some really, really nice ones out there because of the Mito. And I still think, a lot of guys can make a run. Scheffler can make a run. Justin Thomas, I'm not even worried about him being only 2 under. Like, these guys have plenty of time, and Dustin Johnson, those are the other 3 that I could really see making a run. Anyway, guys, really appreciate all of you. Thank you for everything, and good luck to everyone tonight. And let's win some money. See you guys at the top of the leader.